Hello, this is David Duke. It has gotten so bad in the sick world we live in that now some leaders of nations are openly promoting genocide of the European people. French President Nicolas Sarkozy made a speech last year at École Polytechnique outside of Paris. Sarkozy clearly laid out his plans for the genocide of the European French people and nation. Sarkozy openly seeks to destroy the European race in France. He demands that the French people massively intermarry with non-Europeans. This, combined with massive non-European immigration and high non-European birth rates, would completely wipe away the true French people. Here's a quote from the Brussels Journal, in an article called "The Engineer of Diversity." Quote, in his message, Sarkozy insisted that the French people must change, that there will be dire consequences if they don't, and that not to intermarry racially is bad for the survival of the country. Thus, he amalgamated the concepts of preference for minorities in job hiring with that of the necessity for the French people to intermarry racially, unquote. Sarkozy went on to say that if the French don't interbreed of their own free will, that, quote, it will be necessary for the Republic, for the government, to resort to even more forcible measures. To oversee his measures, he announced the appointment of Yazid Sabeg to head up his government program of discrimination and genocide of the European Frenchmen. Sabeg himself made this statement in 2008, quote, I speak Arabic and I am a Muslim. I repeat, I'm a Frenchman and in no case will I renounce one single element of my identity. So here we have Sarkozy's man trying to destroy the heritage of the historical French people, destroy their identity, while he himself proclaims, quote, in no case will he renounce one single element of his identity. As head of the French state, Sarkozy now has also ordered wholesale racist discrimination against French men and women in all walks of French life. In education, in business, in employment, white people in France now face mandatory racial discrimination, much like the United States of America. Millions of our people in America face affirmative action, which is nothing more than blatant discrimination against better qualified white people in college admissions, scholarships, and hiring, and promotions, and in the awarding of contracts. Funny, isn't it? I'm called a racist because I believe in equal rights, that the best qualified should get the scholarship, or the college admission, or the job, or the promotion. But the truth is, the government is the one racist. It's the courts who are racist. It's the politicians who are racist. France is already slated to become one of the first European nations where the indigenous people will become a rapidly disappearing minority in their own homeland. We're headed that same direction in America. These acts by Sarkozy are a violation of the International Genocide Convention, of which France is a signatory. It defines genocide as acts committed with the intent to, quote, destroy in whole or part a national, ethnic, racial, religious group, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Trying to destroy an ethnic group constitutes genocide as defined by international law. Sarkozy is guilty of this crime, and we demand that he be punished in the World Court for attempting to destroy the European French people. Who is this man trying to ethnically cleanse the European people from France? Well, he's very similar to people in other nations who are like him. He's not French. Actually, he is a Jewish extremist who supports the supremacist state of Israel. He does everything he can for Jewish heritage and its preservation in Israel and in Europe. He has a close relationship with Jewish extremists in France and with Israeli terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu. Sarkozy blatantly says that he supports Israel as a, quote, Jewish state. He supports Israel, although Israel has segregated schools for Jews and Palestinians, segregated apartments, even wholly segregated towns and villages. Israel has strict immigration laws for Jews only, and Israel forbids intermarriage between a Jew and a non-Jew by law. Imagine if any place in France or in Europe would enact a law which would prevent a European from marrying a Jewish person or an African. That law would be branded by Sarkozy and the media as the epitome of evil. Sarkozy demands that Europeans intermarry outside their race. But who did Sarkozy marry? When he became the French president, his wife was the very Jewish Cecilia, who announced publicly that she was, quote, proud that she didn't have a single drop of French blood in her veins. Sarkozy divorced her later to marry Carla Bruni, who the Jewish press proudly hailed of being of Jewish descent. Recently, the Jewish newspaper Haaretz in Israel headlined that Sarkozy's ex-wife Cecilia has now remarried a Jew. And Sarkozy's son has just had a huge marriage. He also married a Jew. So what gives? While Sarkozy threatens Europeans to intermarry, he and his family sure don't. Why does Sarkozy and so many others support and meet with Jewish extremist organizations such as Chabad and light menorahs at Hanukkah? Here's a clip of Sarkozy at a menorah lighting in Paris. Why is there no criticism of this in the press and no mention that Hanukkah is a celebration of Jewish resistance of assimilation? In other words, Jewish opposition to mixing and intermarriage with Gentiles. So why does Sarkozy and much of the mass media advocate race mixing for Europeans and demonize any European who opposes intermarriage for our people? Sarkozy and the media don't criticize the largest Jewish organizations of the world. Every one of them has programs to prevent intermarriage of Jews and non-Jews. They say, among themselves, that intermarriage will destroy their heritage. If Sarkozy and the heavily Jewish mass media think it's so wonderful for Jews to preserve their ethnic heritage, then why do they support the genocide of the European people? Every Jewish organization in the world acts to prevent intermarriage of their own people. So it's obvious that they know that such policies are destructive and harmful to the European people. What is a reasonable person to think? Jewish extremists like Sarkozy and the most powerful bosses of the media, these Jewish bosses, intentionally seek the harm and the genocide of the European people. These hypocrisies can no longer be kept from our people. Millions of our people are learning the truth. Millions of our people all over the world are waking up. And they are beginning to stand up for our basic human rights. And the most important human right of all is the right to live. It's a human right that must be accorded to our people. And we demand that Sarkozy, along with political collaborators in the United States and in other nations, as well as the media bosses in America and Europe, be prosecuted, convicted, and imprisoned for the racial genocide of our people. Our people may be down now, but they are not out. They are awakening. Someday we will regain control of our nations, our economies, and our media. Justice will be done. Our people will live on.